Our quote for today is, "There are three things that tell the truth: small children, people who have drank too much, and yoga pants." Today we look at the Acts of the Apostles, this amazing story of the deacon Philip. He was one of the 7 deacons ordained by the apostles along with St. Stephen. Now Philip was, it says, the angel of the Lord said to Philip. Perhaps it was St. Gabriel, the archangel, that spoke to him. Perhaps it was his own guardian angel. It's a very important point. Every day we should pray to our guardian angel. When we wake up in the morning, say the guardian angel prayer. We always want to be open to the inspiration of our guardian angels, as Philip was. So Philip was told to rise and go towards the south road, the desert road, which leaves Jerusalem going down to Gaza. So he was open to the inspiration of his guardian angel. And we should too, because God might tell us through our angel to talk to somebody or to evangelize. Here he was told to catch up to a chariot that was leaving Jerusalem heading back towards Ethiopia. And in this chariot was an Ethiopian eunuch, and he was a very important person. He was the treasurer of the Candace. Candace was the title of the queen. Ethiopia was run by women at that time, the queens. And so he was really the finance minister for the country, a very important person. It said he had gone to Jerusalem to worship. So he was a God-fearer, somebody with a very good heart. Most likely when he was there, he bought one of the scrolls of the prophet Isaiah. And he was reading it in his chariot, and Philip was in quite a good shape. He began jogging along next to the chariot, began running along next to the chariot, and this Ethiopian was reading out loud the prophet Isaiah. People always read out loud when they read in those days. And so he runs alongside and he hears this man reading Isaiah, and he was reading about the lamb led to the slaughter, who opened not his mouth. And Philip says, "Do you understand what you're reading?" He says, "How can I unless somebody guide me?" That is the role of the church, to guide us in the reading of sacred scripture. It's the magisterium, 2,000 years of the church fathers that tell us how to interpret sacred scripture. Many passages of scripture can be quite confusing, but with Holy Mother Church, we can get good guidance on how to interpret scripture. The Ethiopian says, does this refer to Isaiah or to somebody else? Philip explains. He opens the scriptures to the Ethiopian, just like Jesus opened the scriptures to the two on the way to Emmaus. And so he gives him the world's shortest RCIA class, perhaps 30 minutes or an hour or two, because the Ethiopian invited Philip into the chariot with him. So they're traveling along, reading Isaiah, and Philip gives him the catechism lessons and teaches him, I'm sure, about the passion, death, and resurrection of Christ and the necessity of baptism, because this passage ends with, they come upon some water. And the Ethiopian says, what's to prevent me from being baptized? So baptism is essential to the gospel message. So Philip is evangelizing, catechizing this man, and then he baptizes him. So imagine what a beautiful conversion this is. The conversion, just somebody reading scripture, having it interpreted by Philip, who represents the church, and then having him baptized. And then it says Philip, after this work was done, the Spirit snatched him up and took him elsewhere to continue his work of evangelizing. So it's again one of the great stories in the Acts of the Apostles, how Philip converts the Ethiopian through explaining the scriptures to him.